Yeah, thank you. I'm Barnaby. I am a Go developer. Been a Go developer for a few years now. One thing I like to do in my spare time is build sort of products and stuff, little web apps, all sorts of things. I decided recently to actually try building a desktop app. So this is kind of the journey. So yeah, this is like Go for end users, so non-technical people. And I generated the picture there with like the Wally thing. So here's all of the dumb pictures that I got from typing in Go for using a laptop. So there you go. All right, so what do I mean by end users? I'll get a definition down first. Consumer software, so this is like non-technical people. A lot of time in the past, I've built like development tools and stuff, CLI tools, stuff like that. They're really easy to distribute. You get them onto Brew, Scoop, APT, whatever, right? And developers can download this really easily from the command line. Getting like user software, like for non-technical people, actually quite a challenge. And I went through all of the pain of doing this in Golang, and it's kind of fun, kind of challenging, so I thought I'd do a talk about it. So there's a bunch of challenges here, like OS security you can't bypass. You've got to go through the little window that says like, do you want this program to make changes to your computer? And that's sometimes scary for people, so you've got to like get all the right, notarizations and private keys and all that sort of stuff set up, because one computer is quite secure. Hey. And you can't put corners on the installation experience because people just want to install things quickly. You don't want to go typing commands in, right? So, yes, the elephant in the room, I think you're probably all thinking when I say Golang and desktop computers is GUI. If you can name each of these logos, and you're cool. GUI is a bit of a weird thing in Golang and a lot of other modern languages. A lot of apps use things like Electron or Qt or Windows Presentation Foundation or SwiftUI or whatever, right? Building a native app is like, it's a challenge. And there's like, over here you've got like open source projects, and then over here you've got like big, massive, multi-billion-dollar corporations like Adobe, Autodesk, whatever, and they put a lot of money and time into like big teams who solve these problems, because they are kind of hard problems to solve. So I decided, you ain't gonna need it. I don't need UI. So I figured out a kind of cool way to do this using Golang. So my product is actually a browser extension, and then it has a little Golang program running on your computer. It's actually a really powerful combination, because you don't need to mess around with UI. So the browser is my UI. This means that I don't have to deal with all of this weird stuff, like making syscalls and like dealing with all these operating system APIs and cross-platform compilation and all this stuff. Menus are really easy. You can just make a little menu pop up when you click a tray button. I was like, that's kind of cool. So yeah, system tray to the rescue. So why on earth am I going to use Go for this? Why not use C# or Java or any of these other languages that have decades of libraries and tutorials and all this stuff? Kind of wanted to just give it a try, but also cross-platform binaries are just so easy in Golang. You just do GoOS Darwin, and you have a Mac binary, and you can just ship it, and it's great. You GoOS Windows, and you've got a Windows binary, and you don't have to set up a CI that has to deal with all of this weird stuff. So it's great. Nice language, of course. Everyone, I'm sure, likes Golang, or you're curious about Golang. It's a cool language, and it's simple, and yeah, it's a good one. Building UIs in code is kind of annoying. If you've ever worked on desktop software, like I don't know, big desktop software, a lot of companies either build their own toolset, or they use something like the Windows thing, if you're doing Windows stuff, or Electron, or a lot of these tools that have like drag and drop things. They're really nice. Doing it in code is like a nightmare. And there's a lot of libraries out there for doing this in Golang. And they're really cool for like small things, but if you build something quite big, it can get like quite tangled. And I don't actually know, I can't find any Golang apps that are like not side projects. So if anyone knows any like desktop apps that have been shipped to users with companies behind them, not just side projects, I'd love to know, tell me, because I think it'd be really cool if we saw more Golang apps like on the desktop. So challenge number one is packaging. So yeah, this was like a bit of a challenge because all the different operating systems do it differently. Linux is special, we'll talk about that at the end. Linux is the special one. So yeah, basically you need to embed stuff into the binary. So when you have a binary running on a you open up on a desktop system with a window manager, you've got to render an icon. Otherwise, a user is going to be like, what is this? If you're showing in the start menu or the applications manager in Mac, it's got to have an icon. It can't just be that little weird question mark or whatever. So packaging stuff is important. When you compile on Windows, it's kind of easy. You just need to just go OS Windows, and you need an application manifest. An application manifest is basically an XML file that tells the operating system about your application. So it's a little bit different to writing a command line application. Command line applications, you just download them, and then you type it into the command line, and it runs, and it's really cool. But when you're running in a desktop sort of environment, you need icons, you need security permissions, you need a bunch of stuff, and it depends like how complex your application is. It might ask for access to the webcam, access to your location, access to all of these things. And all of this stuff is generally done in the manifest file. It's pretty well documented. You can go and read and understand. I didn't put a link because who copies links from presentations? But this tool right here, called RSRC, there is a blog post, so you can find links after. This tool is amazing. It's written in Golang, and it's built exactly for what I need. So you can take an icode file, so an icon for an application, or an application manifest, and then you can compile it into the binary, and it will just work. And it's really cool. So actually seeing that is really rewarding. Don't have a screenshot because I did this on Friday with a glass of wine. So yeah, this presentation is end of the semester, I need to get this done kind of vibe. But when you do this, it's really rewarding because you see this little binary icon on your desktop and it has an icon. And you can double click it and it'll open your program. And that is kind of just just set something off my mind. I was like, oh cool, I made a desktop app. That's really neat. So on Mac, things are a little bit more complicated, strangely. Same thing with the operating system stuff. You just do GoOS, Darwin, and you've got a Darwin binary. You can run that from any operating system, which is really cool. You need a plist file, which is kind of like a manifest. Same concept, it's an XML file, and it just tells the operating system what your program needs. If it needs admin, what kind of icons it has, all that sort of stuff, right? Mac applications are a little bit weird. So you may have seen this, well, you probably have seen this because you probably use a Mac. At some point, you have a .app file. A .app file isn't a file. It's not like an exe file on Windows. It's actually a directory. And Mac kind of hides this from you. So you can actually CD, if you go to a terminal, you can CD into a .app. And it's actually a directory structure containing a bunch of other binaries and files and all this sort of stuff. It's kind of cool because it means you can exploit it easily on Windows. You have to get some programs to decompile it and stuff. So documentation on this structure is non-existent, almost. I found 2 pages on the Apple website, but they're all outdated. So Stack Overflow to the rescue. So I found this program called Gone, which basically packages your application into a .dmg file. And it's kind of a weird installation process. You get this window, and then in this window you've got to drag the file into your applications folder. Mac installations are so weird. Also, I spent £79 on this. I sent £79 to Tim Cook, and he bought an avocado on toast with it. I don't know. But Mac is annoying. You can't really automate this stuff unless you have a Mac server actually doing this stuff. You can also get GitHub Actions to do it, but I couldn't get it to work, so I gave up. So I'm going to do this manually. Every time I release a software, I'm going to get out all my 2 computers, run the commands, and upload the files. But the notarization process is security. It's actually, for an end user, it's kind of cool because it means that you get kind of a feeling of security that, at least you had to spend £79 to release your program. So if you're going to get a virus, at least it's going to be a bougie virus, It's going to be one that's built by someone who's got some money. So there you go. Installers are the second problem I ran into. I realized I built my app, It was ready. I was like, hey guys, I've made my app. Do you want to try it? And if you're a technical user, yeah, you can just install it, you can download a binary, you can add it to your app, you can do whatever. But when you're shipping programs to people, you've got to write an installer or build an installer, or you've got to package your application in a way that is easily accessible. So there's many ways to do this on all the operating systems. They all have app stores. All the app stores are terrible, trust me. So on Windows, installers are a bit of a minefield. It's like a free market of insanity. There's loads of different things. If you've ever done Windows app development, you've probably heard of NSIS. There's Inno, Wix, Install Shield. If you used to play PC games, you probably remember this one. That's still around. They're a company. They make money. I don't know how. Engineer solution, build your own. This was actually easier because all of these things kind of over-engineered. I was like, I literally just need to get one binary and copy it to the app data directory. That's all I want to do. And doing it in all of these is a complete nightmare. So I gave up. I was like, I'm gonna build my own. Guess what I wrote it in? Golang. It's actually cool though, it works. And all it needs to do is copy a file to a directory, which you can embed inside the binary, and create a shortcut in the start menu folder. So that was actually kind of easy. Installers for Mac. Okay, so there's 3 ways to do this. You can write a PKG file. I gave up. That was too hard. Again, documentation is terrible. Seems better for complex apps, and Golang uses this for their installer. So you've probably seen this one. This is the one where you have a little window that pops up, and it has steps down the left-hand side. And you click next, and it says, sell your soul by reading this ULA. And then you click OK, and it copies the file to a folder. It's cool. DMG files are the weird ones. They're the ones that kind of behave, they're a disk image. It's kind of like an ISO file. They pop up with a Finder window with no Chrome, and it just says, drag me to your applications folder. It's a really strange way for someone who's new to Mac. I mean, I got a Mac a few years ago. Still not used to that. It's very strange. And I still can't figure out how to do a background. Some apps have this, you open the DMG file and it has a background image, and the background image has a little arrow saying, drag me to your applications folder. I have no idea how you do that. Some people figured it out though. So, and then the last thing is you just have an app file. So a lot of dev tools do this, VS Code do this. I think HashiCorp's Terraform maybe do this. There's a few apps that do this. They just give you that app file and then tell you to copy it to your own applications directory. People don't really usually know what that is. It's kind of a crappy user experience. Kind of like going to IKEA, you buy a table, you got to instigate yourself. It's almost as bad as compiling open source. So, yeah, I decided to do a DMG. So distribution is the last bit that is, this one is you don't realize it's a problem until it's a problem. You're like, oh, I'll just upload my files to GitHub or whatever. But for consumer software, it's it's a bit of a weird one because people have to trust where they're getting the files from. You've also got to be wary of browsers kind of flagging your software as well, or flagging the domain name. GitHub is notoriously bad for this. If you upload things as artifacts, then you can get flagged for it. Even if your binary is notarized, you can get flagged. And then a big red thing comes up when someone tries to download it from Microsoft Edge or Safari or whatever. So distributing software, it's all about trust. So yeah, I thought it was the easy part. Getting files and updates requires some work. Updates are the hard bit. I haven't really solved that yet. I don't really know how I'm going to do that, apart from just emailing all my users saying, hey, there's a new version available. App stores are really annoying. So Windows, you can't even upload arbitrary binaries yet. You have to build a universal Windows app, which is this year or last year or I don't know. It's their new version of doing apps, and they invent a new version of doing apps every 5 years. So the Mac Store is, yeah, no one uses that Mac Store. Who actually has downloaded apps from the Mac Store that they use on a daily basis? Yeah, literally 12 people. Half of these 12 people are in this group. But yeah, most people just go to the website. They go to the website, the app they want, whatever it is, and they click download, and then they go through the weird process of dragging the folder to the application folder. So, yeah, I settled on using Gumroad. There's a few of these out there, things like AppSumo, but Gumroad is the one. Not to be confused with Gumtree. I know, I got confused. And then it also lets you build an email list of your users if you want to like send them updates or blog posts or whatever. So that's kind of cool. And also they handle like payment stuff. So if you want to charge money for your app, I'm not doing it at the moment because it's terrible. Will be good, but it's kind of in alpha at the moment. So I'm not going to charge people money for it. But you can, and they will handle all of the like payment stuff, which is kind of cool. You can do discount codes and license keys and things like that. So, honourable mention for like the 3 sections, because I thought of another section, but 4 is like a weird number. So, legals, software license fees. They've suddenly become, oh no, there's software license fees is in like paid apps. So, the first question is it even worth it? Even though it's the second question. I'd say no, not really. I think if you're building something like Adobe Photoshop or Autodesk 3ds Max, it kind of does matter because their revenue comes from selling software and they're big companies and they have lots of employees and they have to make money, right? So they make all their money from selling to studios and things like that. I played with the idea of doing license keys and doing this kind of build on demand thing. So basically like you encrypt the binary that's inside the installer. It's a common strategy for a lot of like, software. You encrypt the binary, you give it basically a private key and a public key, and then the license key is like the key that decrypts, and then you have your software. There's also other things where you just do if license key equals that, but then hackers get around that data. So I decided it's not worth it. If someone wants my software for free, they can have it for free. And it's free anyway, so you know. But if I ever do get around to adding pricing, like if someone's going to go through the effort to like reverse engineering my software, go for it. Good luck. It's probably quite easy because Golang compiles with like symbols anyway, so you can just decompile it. And, you know, if you've ever opened IDA Pro in a Golang program, it's like dead easy. You just go through and be like, oh, cool, here's some strings, replaced. Open source licensing. This suddenly becomes a problem. I think. Do most of you who write Golang write server-side software? I'm seeing a lot of head nods. Yeah, I think Golang is like a primarily server-side and then maybe some CLI. That's like the main area, right? Open source licensing doesn't really matter when you're deploying to a server in your own like data center because it's closed source. If you're open source, you just copy the most liberal license that you have, which is usually GPL. So most software is GPL or MIT or NPL or whatever. GPL is the worst one. In a good way. But when you start shipping software in a compiled form to end users, these licenses actually start to matter. And you actually have to worry about this stuff in a way. Because at some point, someone who's written some random library you've used is like, hey, we're breaching the license because you're distributing software to users without disclosing the source code. And if you've read the GPL3 license, the GPL3 license like requires that you open source like stuff that you distribute. That's why it's a firewall license, because anything that's derivative of it, you have to also use the GPL or G.compatible license. It's a weird law. So suddenly this is like, this is a thing I have to care about because I don't want to, piss anyone off. I don't want to get sued. Not that anyone's really been sued for licensing. I think there's been 2 court cases about GPL ever. But it's also a respect thing. Like we're all using open source stuff. We're using people's work. People put time into this stuff. So yeah, if I have to make stuff open source, I probably will because it's easier to do that than re-implement something that's difficult. The last thing is about liability and privacy and EULAs. I haven't talked about what my product actually is because I'm not trying to make this into a sales pitch, but privacy really matters for this product. Liability as well. You have to put this stuff into a document somewhere because if your program randomly makes their laptop explode and you haven't put it in a license saying you're not liable, then you might be liable. You might actually be liable. So it doesn't matter. There's lots of court cases about weird stuff like that happening, and then software companies getting sued because something random happened, and they managed to prove that it was because of some software. So they do matter. They do matter, and you have to care about them. And I didn't care about them until I did a desktop app. What did I say? I just did server software, and I was like, cool, I can just ship this to the cloud. I don't need to care about licenses. Now I do. So here's the slide about Linux. Gets its own special slide. This one was annoying. I'm not a Linux user, apart from servers. This is not trivial because of distros. Yeah, this was a nightmare. I had to talk to a lot of friends who use Linux, and I came to the conclusion it's not worth it. It kind of is, but like, yeah. There's about 23 different places to go to an app. It's a nightmare. There's like user bin, user local bin, the user's home directory, .local, .apps. It's a nightmare. There's really such thing as an installer. You download an app or you have an app store, of which there are many. So Ubuntu has an app store, there's Pop! OS, I think they have a different app store. There's quite a few. And there's no real understanding of like how popular each OS is, or each distro. Supposedly Ubuntu's the most popular, but that's because Ubuntu's the only one that really has telemetry, because they're a big company, really. There's loads of other ones, there's like Arch Linux, and Nix, and Gentoo, and yeah, the list goes on. So I was like, cool, I'm going to ship you a binary, and you can copy it to any folder you want. That's freedom, right? So yeah, what is the actual product? Yeah, I'm not trying to turn it into a sales pitch. Definitely not sales pitch. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there's a website, you can go to it. It's kind of like a browser extension. It's cool. And it's written in Golang. So this talk will have a blog post on my blog, which isn't linked here because I'm an idiot. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be on meetup.com or Ben will figure something out. But anyway, yes. There'll be a lot of code examples and stuff there. I don't want to put too much code examples in there. I don't put any, so technically it's only a Golang code thing. So anyway, thank you to the organizers, Ben and Bruno. Thank you to the audience, you guys, for putting up with all of my random, terrible jokes. Thank you to the venue as well. So yeah, it's good to be back at Gophers London. Thank you.